Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Broken Gears Airsoft number 3. We have no viewers so far, and that's just fine. So, tonight we are talking about what a horrible idea it is to open an airsoft store. So, tonight I'm talking to Mike, who I'm sure you guys remember if you've watched any of our top tier material thus far, who's run two shops so far, and just so we can keep this we can continue not blatantly falsely advertising that we're a teching podcast. You obviously have a modicum of tech experience, both inside it or both during your time at each shop and beyond. So, yeah, just for a little bit of a quick disclaimer, obviously neither of us are legal, business, insurance, or accounting or any other flavor of legitimate business professionals. So as far as things go on that end, obviously consult a real credentialed expert. But we're just going to pretend that you're past that point. Yeah. And you've got your property picked out, got all that fun shit locked down, and you're really looking at things specifically from the airsofting perspective, right?
Right. Well, assuming that you're going into this, as understanding that airsoft may or may not actually be a giant moneymaker. A lot of people assume that, if you open a store, you're obviously loaded. You must have all the cool stuff. And no, most of us don't. A lot of people in stores don't even play airsoft. They're just doing it as a retail business. So your biggest things are always location. Like they always tell you, like the best way to do any kind of business is to make sure that location. And if you don't have a good location, you won't get the foot traffic, and you won't get you have to have a decent parking lot if you expect people to drive up with their cars. So there's a little bit that goes into the backside of that. But if you found a good location and you like where it is and the rent's okay, and you move in and you're like, hey, I want to actually set this store up and do it right. And a lot of guys, there's many different schools of thought on it. At least locally, there's been a couple of different thoughts between all the stores that have been around here in the Buffalo and Rochester area, both present and past. I've always believed that you needed to have somebody as a tech. Airsoft guns go down pretty easy.
Enough that you need a tech.
Yeah, and even if the gun's brand new out of the box, there's no guarantee that it's going to work properly. There might be a problem with the battery or the charger, or anything that goes into that, and that becomes kind of an issue too. So you need to have somebody who at least understands the basic precepts. I've been in stores between here, Atlanta, all over the world that not over the world, but all the U.S. that the level of professionalism is sometimes not the same as you go through life. A lot of it is, some of these guys are, they don't care about teching it. So they're just going to sell the gun. And if it comes back broken, then the customer's screwed. And I don't like that. And then some people, they get really heavy into the gear as opposed to the guns, which again, I suppose is okay if that's what you want to do. But if
you're not too close to a surplus store.
Yeah. If you can partner up with a surplus store, that's great. I know some people have done that. I've done that actually in my first store. We worked with a local surplus store to make sure we could have inventory in there. And these guys would come in about once a week or so, and we'd swap inventory around and, collect their share of what we sold that week, and away they went. It was pretty cool.
Right on.
Second time through, though, the second store, we just carried our own stuff instead of partnering up, and that worked okay. But the problem is most guys in the military are not my size. They tend to be about half my size. So finding that kind of gear, you have to have a source for that. And you can get stuff through the bigger brand name companies. You can set up accounts and get them through there. But, actual surplus gear, that becomes a whole different story when you get into big guy sizes. Not fun sizes.
But they make them all, being airsoft.
Oh, yeah.
Airsoft.
Yeah,
airsofters.
Yeah, we set up you have to go commercial accounts with people. So a lot of people use like Evike or I think Red Wolf did one for a while. Any of the bigger companies that are out there now. Airsoft GI did for a bit, but I don't know if
trade accounts. You said.
Yeah, trade accounts. Nowadays, you go directly to the sources. Like you go to G&G, you go to Classic Army, or whichever company you want to sell their merchandise, you can go directly to them, which I think is pretty cool too. We couldn't do that initially because the import rules were really weird when we had our store open. So sometimes you get really hit or miss as far as I really want to get that brand new, and this is going to date myself, I want to get that brand new classic Army, M4 that's coming out, the Sportline series. Yeah, I'm definitely dating myself. And, like you couldn't get them from anybody except for directly from Spartan Imports at the time. And the guys that worked at Spartan were amazing, like so good to work with. Um, but again, I was a really small store. I wasn't like, like some of these stores, they have like, 80 guns in the wall. Like we had like 20 maybe. Like we were pretty small. And we carry a lot of gear and stuff. But again, it depends on what you want to get. You got to go to the dealerships to get them.
Sure.
Same with like higher end clothing. If you want to carry like a London Bridge or any of the higher end companies, again, I'm a little dated, so um, whatever the current trend is, whatever the guys really want to have, they're like, oh my god, I got to have the Gucci gear. Sometimes you have to set up accounts with them too. They want trade, people that can verify the fact that you pay your bills on time, lines of credit, that kind of stuff. And then it comes back down to is once you've figured out like what kind of direction you want to take the store in, how do you finance this train wreck? And so like we were a small store with low overhead, so for us it wasn't really complicated initially. But then you find that the markup on airsoft is not quite what you hoped it would be, and the markup on surplus is also not what you hope it would be. So you end up making profit margins that are closer to charity work than Bill Gates.